to the world, because this really gives value to them. And okay, this is some, maybe you will know already, some startup around the campus. Just to give you some number, last year we have around 220 million raised by startup around the EPFL. So 220 is pretty fair numbers. So last slide for you today was the element of a successful relation with the economy. First, we have to recognize that technology transfer has to be mission or your institution. There is no compromise on the quality of the research, because down the line, transfer is what we invent. We have to have the best researcher, and we spend a lot of money to hire the best professor around the world with higher potential, which gives us down the line technology transfer very, very active. You have to have a lot of engagement from your management. This is typically a problem where CTO want to go in one direction and the management go in the other direction. This is really a key ingredient. And then, of course, the autonomy of institution. We want to delegate everything to TT, the technology transfer. It has to be one single point. For a company point of view, coming to a PFL have to deal with a lot of management stuff and who take decisions and so on. It's very painful. You have to be straight. They have to have a fun environment. And this is one of the key religion of my boss: reasonable role of lawyers. Because of course we deal with contracts, of course we deal with law. But as I am not a lawyer, my boss always pushed me to work on this and to see deals as a manager will do. And this gives us, the power of this. And of course, proximity of the technology transfer to the research and faculty. This is also very key. So, bottom line, what's the key message I wanted to give to you? Technology transfer is a people business. It's really about relation with companies, relation with researcher, and only in this way we are very effective in our job. Okay, thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you for an example. Swiss, you have 3 minutes left for the session. So let's between two Swiss. Yeah. This is the prize we have. Question. Yes, please. Questions there.
This sounds like a very soft model where you're very friendly in the industry. But what about patent infringement? Do you sue?
No. Because I think it's a matter of image for the moment. To be honest with you, I was faced in the past, in a few last months, about the case of infringement, and we talk a lot about this. And me personally, if I was me, I would sue, because I'm really convinced that you gain in credibility. You gain credibility as a public institution if you want to assert your rights on some IP. It means that you value your IP, right? It's not just a matter of suing by suing. It's that you are convinced that your technology is really there. But until now, we have not sued anybody. And I hope we will do some good case in the future, because I think that just one will give us, again, a little bit more, I will not say power, because it's not power in a negotiation, but at least you will show that you have some value there, and people have to listen to you, because otherwise they will say, it's a risk.
Okay, thank you. Is there
very short question. Yeah. Yesterday we talked a lot about barriers. And actually one of the barriers was clearly identified on the academic side is the lack of recognition of the activity related to technology transfer with respect to, say, pure and blue sky systems. Can you comment about the situation?
Yeah. Okay. The fact is that the PFL is not recognized as for researcher. is not yet recognized as having a patent is not like having a publication. But for the internal audits, these kind of performances are taken into serious account. If you take a look at the budget of the PFL, we are around 600 million from the Confederation, 280 from the European and non-profit funding. We have 60 million coming from contracts and private sponsoring and so on. So it's becoming significant. And as soon as it's significant, people are interested to understand who performed better than the other. But of course, from an academic, if the first interest of academic is doing academics, so in this part is not yet in place.
Thank you, Mauro, for keeping the time. Perfect, thanks. Interesting talk. So we transfer the microphone, please. Okay, so Mr. Pepe, welcome.
Thank you.
Curious to listen to your talk. Please start.
Thank you. Can I have my slides? DIY. Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you for inviting me. Good morning, everyone. I have the pleasure of leading an organization with the slightly unfortunate name of ISIS. This organization was set up in 1988, so some time before the current alternative. But it is actually becoming a problem, and we are genuinely thinking of changing our name. I also have the pleasure of coming from the United Kingdom, where we suffer in the same way from the Swiss with this obsession with time, so I will try my best. I rather enjoyed yesterday, where it seemed to just do whatever you like and go on for as long as you want, but now I realise today we're back in a Swiss Anglo-Saxon regime. Another great thing about the UK, which I learned yesterday, is that in the IUS, the scoreboard for innovation that we heard yesterday morning, first thing, the UK is 7th. The UK is the 7th most innovative country in the world. At the same time, I learned yesterday that in the Global Innovation Index, we are the 2nd most innovative country in the world. So we have a choice. We can be 2nd in the world or 7th in Europe. And there is obviously something in that. So what do we do? We are the technology transfer company for the University of Oxford. We are 100% owned by the university. We do all of the things that the previous speaker described in terms of helping researchers from the university to transfer their research outputs from the university to industry. And what I want to talk to you about today is really two things. First, a piece on university business interactions in general, and then talk more specifically on university technology transfer. And to think about the role that government and the state can play in some of these things. So it's all about making connections between universities and business. And it's worth just asking ourselves, what are the fundamental characteristics of these two organizations? So why do universities exist, and what are they for? The dissemination of new knowledge, the creation of new knowledge, the preservation of new knowledge, of old knowledge, as the University of Oxford manages a large number of museums. Generally, we talk about universities being for teaching and research. Generally, this is done in an open way with free disclosure to anyone. Although I liked the comment yesterday that was made that placing things in the public domain is not accessible to everybody. But sometimes what universities do is they seek to disclose and see used or utilized the results of their activities through commercial routes. And this is perfectly legitimate and perfectly sensible. But universities do not exist to commercialize the research. So it's not sensible to try and do this inside the university. So you have to transfer the research from inside the university outside where it can be commercialized. Businesses, on the other hand, exist for an entirely different set of reasons. So universities exist to do teaching and research and utilization, etc. That's one thing, that's great. Businesses exist to do something completely different, and that's fine, and that's great. Generally speaking, you can say they exist to make money for their shareholders, and many choose to do this by commercializing technology. Some are successful, some are not. So it makes absolute sense for universities to work with business, so business can commercialize the research coming out of universities. And university and business interactions happen in a very large number of ways. So we heard yesterday the primary responsibility of universities to serve businesses by delivering up highly educated students to work in companies. But university researchers and academics interact with business in many different ways, advisory boards, lectures, etc., etc. Generally, it's this area in red here which attracts attention, and generally it's collaborative research and licensing and spin-outs, which are the focus of all of the conversation. But as the Dowling review mentions, it's about all of that, and I will come on to that in a moment. So we think about how we can helpfully manage collaborations for research between universities and business, and it seems to me that there are three main areas that need to be discussed. The area of academic freedoms, the extent to which one is able to publish, can one carry on doing research, what are the risks associated. The intellectual property, who will own this, who will be able to use it, on what terms, and the money, how much is being paid. And I think you can use this framework to look at certain types of arrangements where, let us say in this example, there are very high levels of academic freedom. The university owns the intellectual property and can commercialize it, but maybe getting paid less money for doing that. Or this sort of arrangement where maybe the university's academic freedoms are highly constrained. A company does not want publication in a certain period of time. The company wants some ownership of intellectual property, some control of it, but accepts that it is paying a higher amount of money for that. So you can look at placing different types of research collaboration relationship on these three parameters, and I think that's quite a useful framework. But the fundamental thing about this is we're trying to get people in universities who are people with certain objectives, motivations, interests, and characteristics to work with other types of people in business who chose to go into business because they have different objectives, motivations, and characteristics. And it's like working together with anybody that you don't really know. And think about what are their expectations, what are your expectations, motivations. Don't hide them, talk about them. Identify the common ground, identify the differences, what resources are going in from you and from other people, who's involved, and get to know each other. I heard a fascinating comment from the head of research at BP the other day, where he said that when they enter a research collaboration between BP and another university, then they expect this to be a long-term relationship for many, many years, and the first 3 years are getting to know each other. And then they think good things might start to happen once the research team in BP and the research team at the university really know each other, really understand each other, and good things begin to happen. After 3 years, not many companies take that sort of long-term view. And then finally, just be friendly. In English, we have this expression, a cup of tea and a biscuit. I guess in Italy, it's a coffee and a biscotti. But just be nice. You know, if you're trying to work together with two people, be nice. Offer them a cup of tea at the business and try and be friendly. A point about Oxford University, last year the research spend was about £612 million. This is a large amount of money. But the amount that comes from industry is quite small. So here, it's about 11%, 10% of the research funding is coming from industry. So there's an awful lot of talk about university business research collaborations. But for Oxford as a whole, it represents quite a small amount of the research activity. I want to mention the Dowling Review. Henrik mentioned it yesterday, and those of you who were here yesterday evening will recognize some of the slides. It was published a few months ago in the UK. I agree with Henrik, it is a very good survey of where university business relationships are and some of the challenges. Published in July, obviously on the internet. And as well as having a lot of useful text, it has some facts. This is a list of the 14 reviews that there have been in the United Kingdom since 2003 on university business relationships. So it is a very well-studied subject. And if the government has commissioned quite so many reviews on this, it's clearly of high importance, but also high complexity. For me, if you want to read just some of these, I would read the first one and the last one, and skip what's in between. We saw this picture yesterday, and you can draw all sorts of conclusions from this. This is the complexity of the university business agencies and support functions that UK government universities and universities get on with businesses. It is a fantastic achievement to put this on one piece of paper, and the minute you begin to look at it, you begin to identify things that are missing as well, so it could even be more complex. But I think it is useful to look at it and think, gosh, what would that be like in my country? Dowling makes 32 recommendations for how to move forward. And she groups them into these 6 areas. Complexity. We have to solve the complexity of the funding arrangements. People are absolutely central to this. Brokerage is essential. You need critical mass, large collaborations. The terms of engagement, by which she means the contracting, needs to improve, and government strategy needs clarification. And interestingly, most of those recommendations are aimed at government, or Innovate UK as part of government, or the research councils which are part of government. So really this is saying government has a very better interactions. So now, moving on to university technology transfer. Oxford is famous for many things. It's famous for providing the film set for the Harry Potter movies at the moment. But there are other important things that have happened there over time. This is a picture of the college where David Cameron, our current Prime Minister, spent 3 years learning how to run a modern industrialised economy. But there's a very modern Oxford as well. So this is the chemistry department, a huge industrial, research endeavour, as I say, over £600 million. What we do in ISIS Innovation, we try to act as multi-dimensional intermediaries, connecting the worlds of academia, the worlds of business and commerce, and the financial investment world. And the thinking is that if we did not exist, there would be a small number of fairly random, slightly chaotic interactions. What we provide is a framework to help each of these 3 different worlds to understand each other and to talk to each other. And we looked at this as a 3-dimensional problem until we realized really it's a 4-dimensional problem because the business culture is different in different parts of the world. So we've set about setting up a number of different offices around the world so that we can transfer technologies. Rather like we just heard from the previous speaker in Switzerland, there are lots of numbers to do with our business, money, and companies, and patents, and all of these things. But I think increasingly that these numbers are part of the problem, and me telling you what these numbers are, I think is irrelevant and of no real interest to you. Maybe Lara and I can exchange some details on how many patents we file, but otherwise it's very, very boring. What is interesting to the community and to the world is the effects of what we are doing, and the stories that can be generated from the work that we do. So, for example, we have set up a company which is developing a gene therapy for an eyesight condition. And this is really exciting and really interesting. We set up a company which is developing a small, lightweight electric motor. And the car that holds the land speed record for vehicles has one of these attached to each wheel. And so eyesight, the first one was fascinating. If you're interested in cars, this one, people find that it's a far more interesting story than the others. And then we do computer games companies. And this company has been very successful, fun, and you can play with it. Also, we sold it last year for $527 million. So it created massive amount of money, but also it creates lots of jobs and has a substantial economic impact. We manage a number of seed funds, and this is where the government or the state has come and provided mechanisms for supporting innovation, has government money in it. One of them is based upon the government tax regime, which makes it attractive for early stage investors, to overcome this problem of what we call the investment gap. We co-invest, so this is us on the land, the university, we have some seed fund support, but we always have to connect with business. So we never invest on our own, we always co-invest with financial investors. And really, what it is about is creating impact. And this is the big discussion, this is the big debate in the UK at the moment, and the Research Excellence Framework has been run to try to measure the quality of research in UK universities now based upon the impact that research has on society. So that was a really big change, and this ability for university academics to be able to tell a story about how they are impacting the world is increasingly important. So finally, we hear a lot about the innovation ecosystem, and it struck me recently that, and we use this slide in ICIS for years to look at all the different types of people we have to connect with in order to be successful. I wasn't sure ecosystem was the right phrase, I wasn't sure system was. So I'd like to call this an innovation community at the moment, because really it's about getting all of the people in these different organizations to come together to create an effective innovation community. And I will finish there, and thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom. Please, there's a question. Massimo?
Yes, thank you. My question is actually addressed to both Tom and Mauro. You have the same boundary conditions, and you made up your mind that you've made the choice, or somebody made the choice for you to follow two different tracks. So at Oxford, you created an American company, and EPFL is still an internal entity. Can the two of you highlight the basic advantages and disadvantages of the two options, or the motivation why, for instance, at Oxford you decided to create a company?
So yes, I've written a paper on this, and it's on the ICIS website. We were set up as a company in 1988, so a long time ago. And the reason we were set up as a company then was for risk management, because the university was very nervous about doing anything commercial. So the thinking was, if it goes wrong, all we do is kill ICIS. University, being a business, because we can interact with other companies on a business-to-business basis. But there are some governance issues as well.
Yeah, I think
the analysis is exactly correct. TTO in EPFL is on 98 also. About risk. Risk is taken into account at the EPFL level, but we accept, as we said before, some risk attached to some countries. As I said, we deal with 200 deals per year, but believe it or not, we have only 2 jurists in our office. Okay? This doesn't mean that we do not care about this. We access risk, but we accept also that to deal with some company overseas in Asia or in the US, we have to find compromise. The compromise is to accept some residual risk about low we manage this side of the story. I don't know if you can agree with me, but we're also very, very close to faculty members. We are always in the labs. Most of us, we live in the labs. So it means that we have very, tight relationship with deans, with the faculty members. I don't know how is ISIS, but of course, this is still a key. I don't know if it's different between EPFL and Oxford, but this is something that I feel is very valuable.
Yeah. I think it's similar. There's also the comment that good people can make any system work, and bad people can make any system fail. It really is the people, not the structure.
Short question. I was listening to Kevin Cullen the other day, and he was making the point that it's not really the universities that create impact, it's our partners, it's the industry. So we can only help them create impact, but the government is fairly naive when it expects us to create impact. What do you think?
I think that there have been a number of waves of emigration from the United Kingdom to Australia, and Kevin represents the most recent. Of course, universities play a phenomenally important role in generating impact, but they very rarely do it on their own.
There's another question here.
I wonder, Oxford is Oxford. Do other universities, any of them, follow exactly what you've done, or in fact is the size and fame of Oxford creates its own model? The other question is government starting to come back to you and say, see their money, do they want to see the money translated into this?
I mean, yes, the impact debate started about 10 years ago now. Was the UK finance team, the Treasury, saying, look, we put lots of money into universities, what do we get back? What's the economic return? And 10 years later, you have this debate now about impact being about money, but also being about social impact, policy impact, cultural impact. So it is divided a lot. In terms of Oxford, I think in the UK you can correlate the size of university research activity very closely with the size and scale and sophistication of the technology transfer program. So there's another university in England called Cambridge, and they have similar activities that we have, and they followed our model for the last few years.
Okay, Tom, thanks you very much. I saw this thing already, but I propose that we do transfer that to individual conversations, since otherwise we're running out of time. We are already a bit. So the next talk is by David Mazur. You agree with the rule?
Yes.
Swiss card? Okay, thank you very much. Please, thank you.
So good morning. I think in view of the timing rules, can we assure you that I'm probably not the best person at CERN to talk about the standard model, the Higgs boson, dark matter. So I think I can say a few things about what we do to do innovation at CERN, and in particular to help our innovations find their way to society, to help indeed create impact in society. So I'm responsible for a section called the IP dissemination section in the knowledge transfer group. You see 2 letters in the word IP, 13 in dissemination, because really that accurately reflects what our job is about. So really disseminating results from CERN to society. Is fundamental research. Here you see some output from the ATLAS experiment. So this is what drives really innovation at CERN. And what I call innovation is when we overcome technical challenges to achieve this research. And this means we are working mainly 3 areas. How can we accelerate particles faster and better? Detectors, how can we detect what is happening when we make particles collide in our accelerators? How can we see the interesting effect? And large-scale data processing and computing. How can we analyze efficiently and store what comes out of the experiments at CERN? Now, what does this have to do with society? Because you can wonder, well, who of you needs a 27-kilometer accelerator in their garden, or a detector who is 10 stories high, or enough computing power to compute basically most of the data scientific research on Earth? Well, we have to look further down the line, because for each of those areas of technology, we need to innovate in terms of magnets, for example, for our accelerators, cryogenics, vacuum, super, for our detectors, microelectronics, new materials, metrology, and for data processing, so networking, cooling and ventilation. Now we're getting closer to society's needs, I think. Let me give some examples. So, high and ultra high vacuum. This is an area which we need to innovate in to be able to achieve the vacuum in our accelerators that we need. I'm told we are going down to 10 to the minus 11 millibar. Now, I have difficulty with analogies in science because even the analogies are hard to understand. So I'm told that 10 to the minus 11 is more or less the vacuum in free space. Now, I have no idea what the vacuum in free space looks like, but I think it's very accurate. This has applications, not only for us, it has applications in, for example, solar collectors and in photolithography industry. Magnet technology, so we have to develop the highest field magnets possible for the LHC amongst others, which don't only have applications for us, they also have applications in MRI, NMR, transportation systems. Microelectronics, we have to develop new detectors and new detection technologies for identifying what happens with particles, identifying the particles, detecting them. They have applications in medical imaging, in structural analysis, even in space applications. When we innovate for high-energy physics, why not take the opportunity to look at how does innovation can actually benefit society as well? And that's really the role of our group at CERN, is not only to give a return to society in terms of scientific contribution back to society, to our 21 member states, but also so really bringing those two closer together. We have different ways that we try to achieve this, but with a common set of principles. Collaboration, I think really this is something which is in the DNA of CERN. Everything related innovation for society, or transferring our innovations to society. Knowledge transfer. Slight nuance, we don't talk about technology transfer at CERN, we talk about knowledge transfer because there's a lot of additional elements of how the experience of doing things in a certain way at CERN, we can also transfer that, and we should take the opportunity to transfer it. And I take the words of my predecessor, we are driven also by impact for society. That's really the yardstick for us of having achieved our mission or not? Have we helped something to create impact for society? How do we do this? Well, a variety of modes, because really there is no single answer. Every context, every type of knowledge, every type of technology has its own context, and also the end user of the technology. So who is the company who's going to use it, or maybe an institution, or maybe a not-for-profit organization. The mode we choose for that is really dependent on which level. We provide service and consultancy, and very I use a lot of commonly based on Earth where certain expertise is present. Well, simply because, as I showed you before, not all the requirements that we have are simply required elsewhere at the time that we need them. But let's make that knowledge available as a service, as a consultancy, if needed, and if we are the only ones who can do it. R&D collaborations with others in the industry. Business incubation, I'll add a few words on that later. Open dissemination models, easy access IP, open source software, software dissemination from CERN. Open hardware, I'll talk about that later today. We also transfer knowledge by procuring things. So because we have such high requirements, and because a lot of our budget is spent on buying technology rather than developing it ourselves, a lot of companies have told us, in fact, by supplying things to CERN, we have learned from CERN. And for us, it's an important way of also doing knowledge transfer at CERN. EU projects, we participate with partners in EU projects as well. And of course, we train people. And one of the elements also is on training on knowledge transfer itself, which I will come to that later. I just want to highlight a few elements that are maybe peculiar to how we achieve our mission. One of them is the knowledge transfer fund. I hear sometimes the word, and I've heard it a few times yesterday and today, the valley of death. I think it's a very, death doesn't inspire me there, because I would call it the mountain of life. And this is one of the ways we try to overcome together with our partners that mountain of life. So we have a fund that is financed partly through, in fact, income or revenue generated from licensing, and partly through the budget of CERN, to take innovations that we did for our own purposes and bring them closer to what is actually relevant for society. So 3 examples. At CERN, we do a lot of meetings because we collaborate with many institutes, so we developed our own event management system internally. Well, actually, today, some 158 institutes worldwide are using that event management system, which was actually co-financed through this knowledge transfer fund. We have a new facility for radioisotope research, where we financed an element of it, namely the radiation hardness of the conveyor system. Well, today we are actually entering into a European project on MEDICIS, where a number of external partners will be able to have access to that knowledge. We also use that, in fact, even to contribute to open source software. So PCAD, it's a piece of software used for electronic design automation. CERN has invested in it through the Knowledge Transfer Fund to actually help the community to develop open source hardware, which I will come to that later, as I said. Another way we focus on is entrepreneurship and startup creation. So we have, if you walk around CERN, so maybe yesterday there was even more younger people than today, so I feel very old at CERN, and I didn't consider myself very old when I joined CERN, but I see a lot of people 20, 23, 25 years old maximum. And in fact, we realized that there's a lot of desire to talk about entrepreneurship, to look at how can these young people take the knowledge that they learned at CERN and bring it to society through their own startup, their own company. So we started to foster that through entrepreneurship meetings. We have a pitching competition. We have a so-called screening week by which university students come to us and help us identify potential impact on society for our knowledge and technology. And we also support entrepreneurial initiatives, which CERN being such an, let's say, quite open place, and I'm making an understatement there are a lot of initiatives popping up, hackathons, creative collaborations, even artistic technology collaborations. So let's foster that. Maybe we can actually help those initiatives also have an impact on society. In fact, we have already now quite a number of startups coming out of thanks to the fosterings. And in fact, one of the ways to accommodate those initiatives as they mature into startups or spin-offs is business incubation. Now, certainly we have 20, we have only one, just on the French-Swiss border. Now, it would be quite unfair, in fact, if the only place that it would be attractive for companies to work with certain technology and certain know-how would be in that place. So we use a model whereby we actually distribute our business incubation efforts with partners in our member states. Today we have the Netherlands, the US, CFC, Netherlands, France, Finland, are more in the pipeline. It's an opportunity for us to give a return to innovation in member states, not only we impact those young people when they leave certain because short. Last but not least, Idea Square is an initiative started some roughly a year ago. It's at the same time a building and a philosophy. It's a place where we, in fact, take the collaboration that made CERN what it is today as a model, and where people are free to work together on societal challenges, not only CERN people, also students from universities, also companies, and in fact, to bring that model as a way of innovating and addressing societal challenges. Very desirable place to hold meetings nowadays. Well, I got collaboration model, which is quite an interesting approach. Now, asked to also talk about the change, what are the challenges, technology and shiny. Having its capabilities which do not directly have a use for society. For scientists, for those of you working in science, good enough for the scientific work, well, it's good enough. Even if there's duct tape around the solution or other ways of holding it together, if it works, it works. Now, that's of course sometimes quite far from what is needed to have a direct use in society. So we have to do a lot of effort in bringing and how is useful for them to create impact on society. And maybe we have to sometimes we have to admit that we're wrong. Well, this is technology actually doesn't have the use that we expected of it. So a lot of that effort has to go into open models. We will come to that later. Something which very much fits the culture of CERN as an open place of innovation, also as a place which is financed through actually the GDP. It's at the same time very difficult to show, in fact, to assess and to prove, well, okay, what is our impact on society through those open dissemination models. It's always hurts the ears when I hear, well, the World Wide Web has been invented in the US by DARPA. This is, I think, an example how it's not always easy to associate your name and, in fact, the impact that you've created through a certain innovation. And the challenge, as I mentioned before, which is also about the benefit, we have 21 member states, so our mission of knowledge transfer makes sure to all 21 member states. And of course, quite different for us to close line in France, Switzerland, Germany will, and it's actually good that we do that effort indeed to reach out to our communities in all our 21 member states. So there you go. I think the top 3 challenges which I would say that we have. So I hope I've spent the time wisely. I want to thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, David, for this very interesting talk. And for me, it seems, for me, it seems that time management, which is the discipline for innovation as well, project time management, seems to work. It's not that complicated this morning. Excellent, thank you very much. Before I address the other raised fingers, there was a ticket reserved for a question previously already by Lorenza. So this is the first question.
Wolfgang, I wanted to ask to you and also to the other 2 speakers before. If you follow the 9 points that were published some years ago by university and the others, I mentioned this document issued in 2007 by some big and it was called In the Public Interest, 9 points to consider in licensing university technology. And some of them are right license and to allow other non-profit and non-government organizations to do so. To extraction in a manner that encourages technology development and use. 3. Strive to minimize the licensing of future. And 5. Ensure the research tools. Points of action should be carefully considered. And most important, be mindful of working with patent aggregators. Second question is, when you consider a technology transfer action successful, is it just the financial word or there's something else? Thank you.
So I think the question was addressed to all 3 of us, if I understand well. So I will start with the second one. If that's okay with you. I think the other ones link to it. So our, let's say, in terms of financial revenue, let's say, what we bring into CERN is negligible compared to the annual budget of CERN, which is 1 billion Swiss francs paid by member states. So seeing that as an ambition, that the financial results are the main driver, I think it's definitely, for us, it's not the token of success of the transfer of knowledge. It is good for the organization because we can finance things like the KT fund with it, but it's not something like this is the first priority. What has come out of CERN has an impact on the daily lives of people, especially in member states. So if we can show that there is for example, social benefit. For example, we have recently a collaboration with a university about teaching autistic children through augmented reality tools that have been developed in the context of the EduSafe project at CERN. Well, I think that brings a very powerful message, but of course it doesn't have any financial return to CERN. But to show, yeah, it's the taxpayer pays for fundamental research. That there is in fact a society as well for research.
I think just very briefly on the Stanford 9 points, I think we do follow that. We didn't sign up to it. Impact. actually, I think universities are like this. I've got a technology knowledge exchange program with benefits, money. And I think universities have a problem with this at the moment.
Yes, there's another question. And please.
The example sort of the same rules. To be honest with you, you're a lot of time having to you know, put them on side because it's really a big matter of image. Each time it's kind of like for us, it's, you know, it's always a matter of image. It's not just money. If we want to do money, we can separate. On that, what about, you know, what is in Switzerland? We have a fair return. There's a lot of people. Okay, we have a good startup. They sold 110. I don't know what's the gain for the EPF, because they want to see a clear return to EPF, and this is very critical. Most of the time when we have some exit, this is also a key point for us. We want to see at least some percent of the exit coming back to the patients. Also, we are aware that we are not just giving money license, so we really decide, but it's not the only output.
Okay, thank you. There is a very short here for the last questions.
Yes. So two concrete examples. One startup who is in fact commercializing solar collectors, which have been created on the basis of the vacuum technology developed at CERN, because especially stable vacuum in solar collectors allow them to create high temperatures for a long time, because you cannot just pump them when they are out in the field. And in fact, it's a good example as well for an opportunity for impact, because we are now working together with an Israeli university to create autonomous systems for heat generation and for example, energy generation in off-grid locations using that technology. So that's one example. Another one is a spin-off working on accelerators for proton therapy. So a type of cancer treatment which is different from the traditional radiotherapy, which is now actually came recently in the news with the case of this British boy, I think it was some 2 years ago, where proton therapy is actually one of the therapies that can best be used in certain cases for children, because it allows to target tumors in a very exact and precise way. So you have two examples of spin-offs from CERN. As I have the word, I just wanted to say one last thing on the nine topics of Lorenzo. Just a very short one is enforcement. Because enforcement, in let's say in the public opinion, there's a kind of illusion that enforcement goes from zero to suing in the court directly. Because of course we have a lot of sensational stories about patent infringements, Apple, Samsung, and so on. And I think it's important to realize in practice, neither company is not operating that way, because nobody likes to litigate, but also that means for research labs and universities, a lot of opportunities to actually get their rights respected in a way which doesn't require you to go to court. And I think that's an important message on enforcement, because nobody likes to be found infringing IP rights.
Okay, thank you, David, once more, and thanks to the other speakers. It's in the interest of all that we more or less keep the schedule. And yeah, the first session, so the next one is then chaired by Tom. It's about incubators and technology.
Thank you very much. And I now turn from being a very relaxed speaker who wants to go on forever and ever to being a very autocratic chairperson. So we have to get on with it. And we have in this session 4 presentations. The first, let's just check everyone here. Stefano Poeta, please come forward and have the microphone. Jose Aguilar, I know he's here. Cosimo Albano, fantastic. Marco Cantamessa. Very good, very good. As we heard, it's about incubation. It's about hearing from the Portugal, from FinTech, and also in broad industrial ecosystems. So, no from me, over to you, Stefan.
Thank you to everybody. I want to start with this assumption. I'm Stefano Poeta, and I'm the general manager of Comonext, and I will explain later what Comonext is. But basically, we make the same work that the last 3 speakers explained, but from the other side. That means that we try to buy new technology from university and we are trying to sell your technology to industry. Because our owner is industry. So we like to try to pick the best power in the research and to bring that to university. There is something intriguing in that because it can seems we are competitors in some way, but I don't think that. Okay, what is Comonext? It's a very old building in 1995 that we restructured in 2010 just to host companies, industries that wanted to have the innovation as one of their major leverage for the business. We are near to Como. We are located near to Como. And the group is quite interesting because about 10 years ago, the Chamber of Commerce of Como decided to create this Sviluppo Como, which is a holding. They put some money in it. They convinced 3 banks to put other money in this company, and just with the idea to help our country, our region, to make innovation. The first thing Sviluppo Como did is Comonext, and then also they decided to put some money in this company, Como Venture, which is an investment company, because one of the scope of Comonext is also to be an incubator, and when you have a startup, you need something to have some. The last thing we do is this Centro Sviluppo Territoriale, which is a center for virtual reality, and we did that because we think that it is interesting to have to make a big investment and to make it available for all the region, for all the companies in the region. What is technology part in general? technology park is a physical site, which is important because if you have many companies in the same site, you can generate more innovation. If you mix sectors, it's more easy. I personally think that can be in business must come from that it may come from industry knows the market basically, and once an idea, then to go in different universities to find how this idea, this business idea, can be translated into reality. This is basically our job. So we host an innovation company. We support the development of this small. I'm speaking about small companies. Small means from 5 to 40 people, not more. And we promote the birth of new startups. Okay, there is a website, I can skip it. It was a very old cotton field that we restructured completely in 2010, so we started. And okay, it's also quite important the success of the scientific market that helps the companies to be well linked to the remaining part of the world. This is what we found when we started. So you see these pillars, and this is what we have now. The pillar remains because we are structured, so it's important. But quite a good job. And this is a typical. I go fast here. It's a typical office we offer to a company that we host. We have our center and 28 startups and about 500 employees works every day in Romagna and Comonext. What is important in this slide is the fact that they are very heterogeneous. You see, we are not a specialized center because we have almost all the sector we have in our region, and this is important because it's quite easy that some people of electronics speaks with some people of telecommunications, speaks with some people of furniture, and they make a new idea. I think that in Italy we have the ability to find a new technology and to find new application of technology. This is, I think, a typical ability of the Italian people. So, another job of ours is to try to make action among the I have 15 minutes. Oh, I know. 3 minutes. To do our job, it's because we are not able to know all the technologies, but we must have pointers in different. We have a network of association, and AXTI is the Italian Association of Technology Partner. IASP is the International Association of Technology Partner, and Italian Startup is the Association of Startups. And we have a network work with university, the more the universities. And who is enterprise who want to grow through our innovation-based companies, are suppliers of innovative technologies, so universities, research centers, and our new startups. What we do in offices and laboratories, an incubator, development of product and service, we have in companies, also the ability to understand. We give them, having in mind both public and as we have mini HET, the Chamber of Commerce, Polytechnic of Confindustria, which is an association of companies in Italy. It's quite easy for us to open the door for our companies, for customers of our companies. Because, I can say as a member of the Chamber of Commerce, they have the phone in our center, they at least open the door. For the incubator, 5 years activity, we made 8 we have seen, we have read very good, very nice ideas, very interesting ideas. Interesting ideas. But when we understood that they haven't the ability to be an entrepreneur, to make up an enterprise. And so it's important to understand that, in fact, we accepted only 34 startups. Okay, this is the incubator zone. I have 2 minutes and I go on. This is important. These are the phases for our startup competition. There is a call of idea. We selected 15 ideas in the phase 1. after the interview, and what the chamber and after 3 years, every incubator has finished his it's like, okay, this 50,000 euro are needed operative money. They must be spent to help them in creating the stainless steel model. Okay, you can see the number. Again, the concept of different sector in the incubator. And I stop because
We have time for two, one in the front, and is that?
If I'm not mistaken, you have been quoting 500 employees, and this is quite an impressive number. I can tell, and I can guess how difficult it was. But in financial terms, how close you are to the break-even point?
yes, we have two different ways to make money. Let me say, the first one is to rent spaces. And the second one are the service companies that are incubated or resident in our park. And the innovation services we give also to other companies in the region. Up to now, the money coming from the two funds are 50-50, almost. And with this money, we have an operative margin that is quite high. Then, unfortunately, it's not the word, but it is and interest. That for the first class last line of our sheet. This year probably it's the first one we go
Or more, anyway.
I think so. I hope.
Next question.
Okay.
Just want to open the floor. My question is related with that.
Yes.
The startups. So does that grant apply to any single company that goes for incubation program or to some of them? And what's
No, it's 50,000 euro for each company. For the not to be spent in 3 years, not in 1 year.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. So our next speaker you have just heard from, Jose Aguilar. He is from Portugal. Portugal is a very famous seafaring nation, and he is going to talk to us about sailing against the wind. And while he's getting that, it strikes me that the border between Switzerland and Italy is moving throughout this conference from very tight timekeeping to more relaxed. But I think once the speaker gets going, you should feel relaxed until you tell him to stop.
You are all hearing me well. So first of all, to thank Massimo and Lorenzo for this kind invitation to be here. In this very interesting event, very inspiring, with lots of good thoughts already. The first I very moment, actually. So my goal is to bring you the experience of an institution in Portugal, which is a country that has, as I observed already, several similarities with Italian reality with regard to entrepreneurship. Several things happen here that we observe as well in Portugal, and we also have a chance in the past to meet different institutions. So several things are basically so. In this panel is to bring you this vision about IPN and this idea of selling against the wind about my institution. And this is related with our context, with our position in our country. We are a very small country, as you all know. And in my role, central region of the country, north, belts towards the north. The 16th biggest city in population nowadays, due to that high concentration of people in the two big cities, Lisbon and Porto, and all the satellite cities, surrounding. And we are also very well known in Coimbra, which is one of the 5 oldest in Europe. And our institution was founded and was a creation of our university. So, Coimbra, our city, is a major city of a public sector driven by 2 main drivers, which is university on one side and our hospital at the other side. Our university hospital nowadays is the biggest hospital in the country. It's quite surprising, due to the merge of several other hospitals that were separated entities in the city. Nowadays they are merged. So we form the biggest hospital in the country. So very balanced, well, the public sector, big flow population. First, during the summer period, summer break, they leave to their houses and our population decreases. And we also have a strong absence of industry in the city. And to get things worse in our city and in our surroundings, we have 3 other cities. So 3 smaller cities than Coimbra that are in the surroundings in the central region of the country, which are characterized by having lots of industry there, industry of different areas, different sectors that we are lacking in our city. So this is the position of that triangle towards Porto and Lisbon. So we are there, and we need to city as a private association for the promotion of innovation and tech transfer between Italy and business. We have 3 main areas. So in our own labs, so always thinking about partnerships with companies, with industry, trying to solve and to be challenged by companies. Technical problems. And then the innovation and acceleration activity for startup companies always companies, and residual some smaller. So and also IT are our strongest activities in our applied research. And our incubator is started only for companies, for startups, just near our 2 original buildings. That's massive. Already know. I don't know. So our incubator offer to our companies, to our startups, is very wide, as you see here. So we have quite different activities based on two different models of physical incubation and virtual incubation. So the main difference is that in physical incubation, you have some dedicated rooms for the companies to stay there. They have their own office there. The virtual incubation model is a model where that physical space, so they don't do that. They can do, for instance, they can book meetings with our meeting groups. They will have their website lodged in our servers. So different offers apart from the room, the physical room. And then, of course, the access to funding, to VCs, to banks, to everything related with finance, as we have an already established network for this kind of products. Some management support to the business plan, very critical point in the beginning of some of our business. The access to scientific knowledge, of course, to all the skills and competencies that we have in our university. We have that which very well established also throughout our labs, which are a communicating point with the different areas in our university as well. Some work on IP management as well, something that we provide to our companies. And of course, this huge network and internationalization efforts that we always provide to our companies. So this offer is bringing lots of cases, lots of success cases. We already said that we are having not only the IT sector, but also on biotech, and nowadays in advanced solutions for banking and other areas that are developing quite well, in aerospace as well, due to this very close support to our entrepreneurs, to this wide range of things that we offer to our companies, and to this stable and committed team that we had the chance and privilege to keep with us. So a group of people now, all of us for a couple of years, and it's a very strong asset that we have to have this team together for a long period now, which is something that will prevent us to train people, to get things going again. So having these people together is very nice. And our figures for the incubation, so a total number of more than 200 companies created since 1996, with a survival rate of 80%. So companies that are still working, still after 5-6 years. The number of exports now increasing from this 35% figure to nowadays, I think, very higher figure here. And it's very, very important for our activity, the creation of direct employment from this universe of companies in this period. So in the country, as you know, with a high rate of unemployment nowadays, especially young people without jobs, it's a very strong effort that we deliver in our country, and especially in the region to bring this. So our new facility is called the Business Accelerator. This is something that we created to keep those companies that grow up with us, so that they would not be forced to leave. Not only our context, our surroundings, but also the city sometimes, because of course real estate is expensive. People try to move elsewhere to get cheaper prices. So we provide this facility to keep these companies with us. So companies with more mature pace. Some of them were past incubated companies that stayed with us for a long period, and now they moved to this new facility. Other ones, they came here to this office as new companies in our university. So these are some photos of our new buildings. Of course, they are bigger than our incubator office. They are bigger, 2 buildings dedicated to this new area. Very nice buildings. So every company has their own balcony, facing and with the garden in the middle to have our Portuguese sunlight, and some good meeting rooms as well. And with this configuration with single alley in the middle and big rooms for the companies. Of course, these companies are bigger, so nowadays they work with their doors normally closed. Not the same as in the incubator, where we have a much more friendly environment with all people collaborating, knocking at the door, also colleagues having lunch together. So here things are slightly different because these are bigger business. So we have this area, and we have a capacity of up to 20 companies, nowadays with 70% of the space already occupied. And in this building, we have a long-term partnership with this company. So the idea is to keep them there for 5 to 7 years. That's our major commitment with them, our agreement commitment for this period. That's why we deliver the space completely empty, so that they can configure their space as they want to put their people working. And with regard to this trend about our relationship with the public sector, which is something that was especially requested from our side. So we don't have any kind of direct financing from our Portuguese state budget. We are a private non-profit association. Of course, we were created by the Portuguese Public University of Coimbra, but we need to survive by ourselves, in our own budget, in our own sources of income. Of course, we have a direct incentive for building our infrastructures. These buildings that you saw on the previous slides, we had this 70% of the total investment direct incentive for that. Of course, we apply for competitive calls for funding on R&D innovation, but there we need to have good projects in order for them to be approved and for us to get the money. And apart from that, 50% of our budget, we need to earn that money from our consultancy services, from our projects, from our activities, especially towards the companies, and of course, with all the incubation and acceleration fees that we are collecting from the companies that are with us. So in that sense, it's very demanding and challenging to work in Instituto Caruna, that we need to be competitive and to strive, just like a company, just like a private company, for our survivors, because in that sense, we are not being financed directly by the Portuguese state. We have a very partnership with some centers to draft a program for promoting entrepreneurship in small villages in the central region of Portugal, as you saw on the map. So we are the central region. So we work already with roughly 10 different municipalities, drafting a course for entrepreneurs. So they launched a call, a local call for people, especially for young people that are living there. And by the way, to give them some practical approach to having our businesses there in those small villages, as we are suffering, as in other places in Europe, with that huge drain to the biggest cities. People, so young people moving away from these rural areas, from interior towards Lisboa, towards Porto, and this is some kind of trend trying to fight this trend of people leaving from those small areas. So that's another point of contact with the public sector that we have, but it's basically the same. We were challenged by that, and of course we are getting paid for this work. And so this is not kind of a direct plan coming from the top government of Portugal. So in that sense, we are working by ourselves. We are working with these municipalities surrounding us. Apart from that, of course, the traditional reaction from the public sector is the applause and some kind of kind words for our work that we are delivering in the country, especially putting in place this innovation trial, as we normally mention. So rising from our old university, then passing through our facilities, the incubator, and then in the end, the accelerator. So this trend from the early stage startup towards a big company. A company like this one, like Gidzai, we have our big speech yesterday from this is a company that big by our University of Cleveland, and they had this rocket drone that brought them already to this kind of financing that was secured 2 or 3 months ago. They are already participated by several funds, especially the US and also the European funds. But their R&D main facility is still based in Alvarez, which is something that we are quite proud of. So their R&D main area of development is still based in Quebec. Their CEO is already and it's one of our biggest success, most recent, that we have developed. So the problem is we are already an innovation forward region, and of course this is something that we are quite proud of. This work that we delivered in not the most favored things to happen, as I think I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation. So if you want to know more about Instituto Pedro Nunes, we have our recently revamped website. We have a new version. So thank you for your attention. I'm open to any questions.
Questions, please come here at the front. Is there good? Okay. That's
when you look at startup, the success rate by now you are mentioning 65%. You know, really the question is the DD or the this number can just to 65%?
First, we are in the selection of the company we know
it was open to every to everyone indicated has, but it was a light acceleration. So there was a mentoring program each day for investors, and so we took startups, life science, and so on. A spin-out of the ICT Web and Digital, I'm going to talk, in which we ran in last year and still running until October. The FinTech Accelerator really accelerated this startup and supporting them in a different way. Access to the assets of UniCredit, that directly access to the asset of UniCredit. Actually, our since we probably already bored, I will related to a short video that this was the engagement video. Let's come back. Okay, probably it was shown very quickly in the video. These are just some details of the acceleration program that is lasting 12 months. The first 4 months are related to a fast acceleration in which UniCredit and the startups work together in order to deploy and to complete the product. The 8 months are more related to preparing the startup to face the challenges of the market and to grow the network with investors and so on. So, in order to not only knowledge, but also a small grant, as you can see, and but importantly, the access to the knowledge and the resources of UniCredit for an environment that we know very well. So we selected some distinguished engineers that mentored the startups step by step. We created some innovation sessions for them. We organized some pitch day with investors with our clients and open to the external market in order to let the startup be seen and exploit their network. And regarding the co-working space, of course, it was the first year we are thinking about to rent or to buy some space. but we actually realized that we are the master recommander of the United States. We have a lot of branches, and by the way, we are reconverting the branches, and that's what we did. We selected a nice branch in Milano, and we reconverted the space in a working space for the startups, in which they can really test and try their products. The selection process, you see, we embrace the diversity, so some slides are brought in Italian and some other in English. We run a selection process of 7 months, and taking 120 calls for in order to participate in the program. There was a short list made by the Open Innovation Structure and some experts of internal of UniCredit in order to have the pitch and select the 4 startups that accept that have been granted the access to the program. The first class of the program is the 4 startups. Maybe you know some of them. I don't want to go through all details. Guys, finding all your habits regarding your expenditures for the mobile operations, and then they scan the markets in order to fit with your habits in order to, in terms of mobile expenditures. We offer software as a service platform in cloud that integrates the principal social media channels, and they coming from the social channels in order to prevent and avoid some reputational risk. Pocket System is a platform of a personal cloud storage application in which you can upload your sensible file, invoices, medical documents, and the interesting thing is that through several algorithms, they can acquire directly from a PDF, from your mail, from the PDF, and let you have in a very entertaining way, in a scheduled way, all the relevant information regarding your bills. They send you an alert when you have the next time you can pay also directly from the application. Quantai instead is a new model for the investment and for manage your risk regarding to the investment market. Okay, this is an area that we are very proud of, in which the startups are working, but I don't have such slide as my colleague before, but I have some video. This was an example of the daily activity in our Start Lab space. Okay, I finished my speech. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, thank you. Very good timing, very good multimedia presentations. We have time for a couple of questions. Is these and one more.
All I have seen is very, very interesting. I'm a scientist and I know my colleagues. When you're a scientist, you are focused on what you're doing. Your interest is in doing research. And sometimes you have an idea that might have a useful application, but we are not entrepreneurs. So the missing link here is when a scientist has a good idea and does not know how to bring this idea to society, who's taking charge of helping him taking the idea and bringing the revenues to him, even though he's not.
Yeah, I think it is a comment actually. UniCredit is helping this. We run this program just because of that. Because first of all, we want to support the growth and the talented people. Now, currently just in the Italian perimeter, but the scope has to be wider in the next wave. And we really I've thought about that. UniCredit is supporting also in this exchange, collaborating with the first thing of the difference of the Start Lab with the previous versions is that UniCredit can also co-invest with the startups and supporting them in order to face and to interact with our networkers and with other investors in the market. But as I said, it's not our core business doing this. It's a side project that has been run last year for the first time in this kind of a characteristic. And but we think that we have good idea and positive results, and we can run in an improved and a scaled way next year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. I guess my question is really for everyone presented in the incubator accelerator sessions. I used to run international ventures for Plug and Play in Silicon Valley, so one of the largest accelerators in the world. And we once held an event where we invited a bunch of teams to talk about the state of our industry. Because there's been a lot of talk that there's an oversupply of incubators, an oversupply of accelerators, which to a certain extent is contributing to the sort of the bubble in tech in general. And if I could summarize that event with one sentence, it's that if an incubator or accelerator go-to-market channel for its startups, then ultimately it'll fizzle out. Because there's so much mentorship, there's so much money you can put in a company. Right? At the end of the day, these are the entrepreneurs that are building not just products, but businesses. So my question to you and your colleagues in the panel is, what's next beyond the program? What kind of sort of post-accelerator platform are you providing for them to build sustainable businesses beyond the program?
Yeah, correct. This is basically this is the point. Actually, as a very for a part of that, for the fintech startup, is they are more related to the business, and the one that are more related to the business to deploy and to let startups being part of the business of UniCredit. So for such kind of environments that can fit with our business, and I won't say that we run this program because of that, in order to find something to together to have the exclusive. We don't want that. For sure, due to the relation, due to the need to go to the market, what next? It's a program of 12 months. But in some cases, we are working with, we are thinking and evaluating for 50% of that startup that you saw. For the rest of the startup, we can support them creating the positive environment. We have a collaboration with other Italian venture capitalists such as Imogens, H14, and we support them in also to find their path. And in some cases, we grant also some. The part of the startup program is to grant a loan to deploy to expand their business. Of course, this loan can be convertible in equity if the company and not UniCredit can exert their rights. But I think it's still a good step toward the right path.
Thank you. Final comment from Portugal.
Just to have a brief about the same question. First, as we like, is the first we rely heavily in our network, in our whole range of network that we have not only in Portugal, but that and that partnership with us, that privilege with us to strive and grow. Of course, that's sometimes a very important effort to open these doors, to reference them as the cases elsewhere, and to build also that bridge with venture capitals, with banks. I could mention a brief case that we have with one company. Once we were organizing a meeting, international meeting, an international association in Portugal, and one of the prime sponsors was a venture capital firm, and they were discussing a step of financing with one of our members, and then we had a gala dinner in Vienna, and we had one place at the main table for the sponsors, and then we shifted places. We asked one guy to get out of that table so that we could put our friend from the company sitting right next to it. And he said several years from that day, we were very important in that way because at the end of that dinner, they keep talking, and the conclusion was that we give to that dinner of that round of financing, due to that effort, that network effort, that specifically that was so it's wonderful.
Very good. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. And now for the final session on incubators, I'm delighted to introduce Professor Marco Cantamessa to talk to us about his experience. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. Thank you also for the invitation. I've got two missions. The first one is to keep it short, and the second one is to actually answer the nasty questions that were raised to us in coming here. We're not invited here to talk about our experience, but to answer these very terrible questions, which basically are, do we really need incubators after all? Why do you exist? Okay, which is a very interesting point. However, in order to give an answer, I have to start from my background, because, I have a data point, which is my experience, and I have to tell you what it is, but then I'll try to give you a comment on these very hot issues, because they're the same questions I ask myself every day, and then the ways we can deal with them. So, first of all, what is I3P? I3P is an incubator, so it's Italy, and it's a joint stock, not-for-profit making consortium. So Politecnico is the second largest technical university of the country. Torino is a quiet, manufacturing-intensive place, so it's a nice place to actually build new businesses. Now, what happened in 1999 was that all the public authorities, region, province, city, chamber of commerce said, Torino has to change because we don't know what they will actually do in the future, and then we actually saw it happen. And so we have to build new businesses. How do we have to do it? Well, let's build an incubator. But the first important thing is that the incubator is an effort of the joint government and university. The triple helix is happening there. And Politecnico di Torino is only 1/6 shareholder of the whole thing. So this means that my shareholders are for 5/6 non-academics. This means I'm measured, and I want to measure myself in terms of jobs created in technology. That's basically it. So what's the implication? The first implication is that we are a consultancy and advisory company that serves, yes, students, researchers, and lecturers, but that's only half of our customers. The other half is anyone else. Any person who wants to set up a high-tech business close to Politecnico and receive our services, can knock on the door and eventually be admitted. And of course, anyone else also includes companies who want to create spin-offs, as long as there's an entrepreneurial content in that thing. Okay, so it doesn't have to be a subsidiary, but it has to be entrepreneurial. We have a problem now. We're owned by the government, so how do we avoid becoming relaxed and saying, okay, these are my costs, please reimburse them? This is a very hot topic. So the way we did it is to fixate a first KPI. We have to make money from the startups that we launch for at least 35% of our revenues. Actually, it's more than that, but that's a minimum. And then we made another step, which was we abandoned the competitive grant kind of thing that was mentioned by our friends in Portugal, because we felt this was distracting us from our core mission, that is to build companies. So we went to the region and we said, you have something called the European Social Fund, which is for training. Well, we do train entrepreneurs. So give us part of that money, and this will fill the gap in the revenues. But please, don't give us the money based on reporting of expenses, because that's too easy. Pay us by the startup that we launch. And they said, you're crazy. Why should you want to make things more difficult? And the answer is because it's the only way with which we can align our incentives. So basically, every time that we launch a new startup, we go to the region and we say, okay, this is the standard cost for launching a startup, give us the money. So in a way, we have transformed a market failure in a quasi-market, okay? And the company works as a company. We have objectives in terms of companies to launch, projects to elaborate on, and of course, applications to raise. Working like this, we had a number of prizes in the past. This is a very old one. We have UBI Index, which is a ranking of university business incubators, and now we're ranked 5th in Europe and 15th in the world. So apparently, we're doing something right. What do we do? Well, it's a very similar slide to the one that was presented by a friend. So aside from the real estate, yes, we do real estate, of course, and it's not even in the slide. We do a lot of scouting, because the problem is if you don't have a lot of ideas in, you won't have successful companies out. We do it with a lot of footwork, as our friend in Oxford said, okay? Go to the labs, live there. But then we also have a lot of events, competitions, hackathons, and all that sort of stuff. We do consultancy. Strategic consultancy is our core competence. So it is business modeling and business planning. But then you also need legal, IP, all this stuff. But we decided not to give it in-house because we said we want to build an ecosystem in the city. So let's go to the patent attorneys, the lawyers, and the accountants in the city and tell them, give a little bit of pro bono to the companies, give them discounts, we'll create your future customer base, and you'll learn how to deal with startups, which is different specialization. Well, funny enough, a few of them said, okay, let's do it. We do matchmaking between technology and business competencies all the time. I often say we're a dating agency, but traditional one, not like me, okay? Because yes, we do have a professor that comes with the technology, but who's going to bring that to the market? Not the professor. He won't be a good entrepreneur. So we say, okay, let's wait. Let's see if somebody comes up who's willing to actually join forces and actually behave as a real entrepreneur. Because a company without an entrepreneur is doomed to fail. But the other way around as well. There might be somebody who's a great entrepreneur but doesn't have the technology. So we go in the university and see if there's anybody there who can provide that sort of thing. So that's, dating agency also means dealing with psychological things as well. It's not only about competency, sometimes psychiatric as well. And also we help with recruiting of personnel. We do fundraising, equity fundraising with business angel, venture capitalists, the few we have in Italy. and of course corporate investors, and of course we also do debt fundraising with partner banks, who basically lend money to startups, even though they wouldn't because of reputation. So when we feel that a company is ready for debt, we bring them there, the metrics are probably not the right ones for the bank, but they say, okay, let's do it just the same. We do support the business development. That's really the big thing. The easy thing is sending people to trade fairs, but the real thing we do is tailor-made corporate events. Every couple of weeks, we have a large company come to the incubator, looking at about 10, 12 startups that might be interested. Maybe they go in detail with 2 or 3. One gets a pilot project. Cross your fingers. Maybe that's a revenue stream that comes up. We do development of sales networks, and the new thing that we're going to do is run corporate incubation programs as a white label. So we have a partner company, I can't tell you the name yet. They will basically have their corporate incubator in-house in our premises, and it's from Magas basically. The other thing that we do is support to investors, even though that will be made by I3P, but by a privately owned company run by its mentors, because that is something that we feel is more, let's say, suitable to be run as a market initiative and not as a public initiative. And it's advisory to investors, board representation, and part-time management. This is not something that a government-owned entity should do, at least in my view. Okay, what are our results? We have an annual deal flow of about 300 applications. We work on about 90 business plans or MVPs. MVPs stand for minimum value products. For internet startup, we just launch it to see what happens, and then we launch about 15 to 20 new startups, even though not all of them are officially admitted in the program. Okay, the figures that you see, 178 were found are Delhi at the moment, 94 survived, 11 acquired, 1 has done an IPO, by the way, and 31 have gone out of business. So it's a similar success rate to what was mentioned before, but hold on for a second. Success rate doesn't mean anything because it's a mix of bad. We have a number of companies that are basically service-oriented companies, low risk profile, no equity in there. Success rate there is very high because it has to be very high. But then you have the product companies, risk financed by equity, and success rate there is indeed very low, and it has to be that way. So when you look at an income, these figures, you have to break them down into the risky and the non-risky businesses, of course. In the beginning, we only had service-oriented companies because there was no equity. Nowadays, we're shifting. We're keeping the service businesses away. We're moving into products. So this figure will become much worse. That's good. Okay. We are fairly balanced across sectors because we have the mandate of looking at all technologies that have to do with Politecnico di Torino, which means everything except made biotech and pharma, because we don't have that. And that's good because basically it creates synergies and complementarities between the companies and, of course, with the local industry, which is very important. We have seed-level fundraising about 2.5 million per annum on average, which means from 50K to 500K to launch a company, 50K for an internet company, 500 for a medtech, to give you an idea. I know it's not much, but at least it's something, okay? And then we created more than 1,400 direct jobs over the years. And the interesting thing is that each of them has cost a 6,000 euro investment one-off in public funds, which is nothing. Because when you create jobs in policy, you usually spend more. Of course, the regional minister asked me, okay, what happens if they give you 10 times as much as a budget? And my answer was nothing. It's not scalable. And of course, he has to keep it that way. But of course, this is quite an interesting point. So I think the overall business impact will be much more than that. I mean, if you use a multiplier of 4 or 5, we're talking about 5 or 7,000 dollars. You see, this is the build-up over the years, 10 that grew very much because there's a great effect here. Okay, that's part of life. Okay. Okay, we have positive P&L, and financially we're absolutely sound, so this is quite good. So, comments on the hot issues that were mentioned before. If I look at it with a professorial hat, an incubator is a consultancy company, of course. It's a multi-sided market between companies on the one side and providers of resources and competencies which are complementary on the other side. It's a mini business cluster with economics of agglomeration and so on, and it's also a bridging institution in the sense of the trickle events. So what are the economic drivers of all this? Well, you've got learning economies, because the more you act as a consultant, the better you learn how to do it. You've got economies of scale and scope. scale and scope, sorry. And of course, you have a strong reputation of capital, which means size and experience matter a lot, which is good, because this means that if an incubator is big and successful, it's going to be that way. And if an incubator is not able to take off, it's going to be a mess. Is that good if you're a big incubator? Yes and no, because the problem is you're still a publicly owned institution, which is big, and maybe it's too big. Okay, so this is the reflection that we have to look into. If I look into the literature, I'm mixing efficiency of incubators. Why? Well, it's difficult to define metrics. How do you normalize the results based on where you are? I'm raising 2.5 million in Torino. Is that a lot? I think it is. If you compare it to an incubator in Silicon Valley, it's beans. Okay? But of course, you can't compare apples and oranges. Other surveys look at perceived value by the entrepreneurs, which is okay. But are we really sure they are giving you objective data? It's not easy to say. The other thing is that research tells us, yes, effectiveness and efficiency have a lot of barriers. Some incubators are good, some incubators are not. So the problem is not incubators, yes or no, but how do we make good incubators? And then my perception is Silicon Valley is a huge incubator, but still you do have incubators there. So this means that probably, if the Bay Area has plenty of incubators, probably do have a role. I mean, I don't know if that is very scientific, but that's very simple reasoning. What is the real problem that I see in my industry? Is that there's little evolutionary change. If you have good incubators and bad incubators, how come the bad incubators don't imitate the good ones or are kicked out? That is the real issue that happens. And the other point is the risk of self-perpetuation. As a matter of fact, I want myself to be there. But if I think about it, I would be much better off if I repeat disappear next year because Torino has become a great incubator that doesn't need an incubator anymore. So this is a problem with waste of resources, of course, but it's also a problem of crowding out private initiative, which means contradicting the original mission. Because I was not set up to become the hotbed of entrepreneurship, but a stimulus, okay? It's like when you put leaven in the flour to make bread, okay? So how do you deal with these things? And this is the last slide. First of all, you have to identify and continuously assess market failures. You're there to assess market failure. Is it really there or not? Because if the market has evolved, stop doing something, make a step back, and let private people come in. The other point is that when you realize that you need public intervention, you have to create quasi-markets. It would have made a huge difference if we had been reimbursed by simple reporting of expenses. By having said, give us the money by the startup that we create, it has completely changed the situation. So if public intervention has to be designed, you have to create business models, KPIs, and incentives that really are geared towards doing the right thing. And I do realize this is not very present in our industry. The other point is to be very clear in your dual mission of creating an effective something, but also in fertilizing the ecosystem. You have to watch out because since an incubator tends to be big, successful, and self-perpetuating, the problem is that you become the big boy, and then you're actually destroying the ecosystem. That has to be avoided. And finally, how do you deal with the public and the private? It's not very clear, I know, it's on some purpose. Personally, I don't believe in public-private partnerships because I see that as a clear way to mix up and make a mess out of incentives. What I prefer is public, private, and then you partner with an agreement. So that is, for instance, the reason why I don't want an investment fund in my incubator. I'm a government-owned entity. I want investors to set up shop within, my rooms, but I'm different. And I don't want, for instance, to be an advisor to, or sit on the board of startups as a public incubator. It's not a problem if my mentors do it, okay? I don't want to do it because I think public and private has to be separated. And finally, there's always an important thing to be done. It's the granny test. Does your grandmother understand your job and the mission of your entity? If yes, you should exist. If not, probably not. And then there's the taxpayer's test. What would happen if it disappeared overnight? And if the answer is, it would be a real mess for a lot of people, then you should probably exist. And if the answer is, I don't know, Well, you should pull the plug. Definitely. Thank you very much.
We have two questions, one here and one here.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I have like 4 questions, but if you want to pick just one, we can talk. Okay. One is what is this consulting side has to do with startup, or what is a service for big companies? We will get that. That's the first.
And
the consulting part, you said, you do consulting for companies.
What is the consulting aspect of your
business?
I think you need it is.
Let me go to the 4 questions, then you pick the one you like better, okay? Like most. And then, if you have any metrics that the government put on you, because I understood you said that it's co-financed by the government, your incubator.
Yeah.
The third one is what you do for fertilization of the ecosystem, which is one side which is important, as you said. And finally, if some of the 17 incubators that we are co-financing in Chile are kind of moving towards being accelerators. I don't really know why. Maybe it's just because it's more comfortable for them. So I would like to have your opinion on that.
Okay, so the first one is consultancy. We are a consultancy company in the sense that we provide consultancy to the entrepreneurs and the founders who want to set up a company.
For the entrepreneurs.
Yeah,
my question is how they pay, because usually entrepreneurs
basically what happens is that before the company is formed, we represent as a market payer, and that's where the region pays to the European Social Fund. Afterwards, they pay because they have to pay, and that's it. Of course, we do help them get funds from investors, and that's the way they do it. It's not high staying. I mean, to be in the incubator, a company has to pay, the first year, 2,500 euros, and the last year, 4,000 euros for the service. Real estate is on top of that, okay? So it's not a high fee, but they do have to pay. Okay, the second question was
metrics and the
metrics. Okay, metrics basically are jobs being created and the cost of each job being created. And that's the basic thing that we are measured by. And of course, the PLL has to be positive on our side.
The other one was fertilization of the ecosystem.
Oh, fertilization. Fertilization, we do it by trying to do whatever is possible, not to do things that can be done by somebody else. So for instance, we don't want to have a lawyer in-house because the lawyer is already there. We don't want to help the companies find public funds because we're trying to stimulate the investors to come, okay? Sometimes they come and they say, oh, will you help me with the European grant? We usually say no. We usually say no, then they do it just the same. We did get a few SME instrument grants. But despite we didn't help, because the point is we have to try and stimulate the ecosystem. And the other point of the ecosystem is the market. So when we attract the large corporations to come there and look at the startups and force them sort of into doing business with them, that's another way that we do it. The other one was accelerators. Accelerators depend on what you mean by accelerator. If you mean somebody that
actually, this is a question. I'm going to cheat and insert a question. What is the difference between an incubator and an accelerator?
I don't know.
It's just the same.
I don't know. I don't know. Two things. Some people say accelerator is a pre-incubation, very fast program, give you a little bit of money and so on. Sort of like Y Combinator and things like that. In that sense, we are fairly similar because we do have pre-incubation, and companies often get limited pre-seed money to do it, not from ourselves, but from the investors that live close by. Some people say, no, an accelerator is post-incubation, okay? In that sense, we have a fairly long incubation program, which is 3 years, and we probably will extend it even more, because we recognize that when you are in fields like fintech and medtech, it's not true that you can build a company overnight. You need time to build, especially in a country like Italy, where demand is very slow to pick up. We had an IPO, and that was a 10-year company. Okay, it's probably fine. I mean, just think what it takes to get an EC mark on a medtech instrument.
Good. So, like Alice in Wonderland, words mean exactly what you want them to mean. Final question.
Thanks a lot. Well, a comment and a couple of questions.
One question. Yes.
So the crowding out story, it's very interesting because it's something that is actually happening in Germany. If you are as farm offers are dominating basically the part of some of the activities you are referring to. So that could be also a problem in relation to killing lots of specialist contractors that could actually do that job. But there is an issue that you raised which is extremely important because in Italy we had a problem of the financial sector being able to understand the specific financial needs and go beyond the asymmetric information that they had, especially when there is this big risk. And yesterday we were mentioning the TRL and the specific problem. So to what extent your type of activity can become a way to actually really make the financial sector closer to lots of activities that have some fundamental research that are associated with what they do. And the second related question is, lots of the stories that we've been hearing now.
Allow one question.
Okay. The other one is at the top. I have a question for you now. Financial sector, you mean private equity, venture capital, or do you mean banks? Banks. Banks, okay. So the point here is that you cannot grow a risky business based on debt, because debt has to come in when you start to feel that revenues are there. So the first thing that we tell entrepreneurs is we'll help you with the banks, but only when we think that you're ready to do it, okay? Because, why is that? Because of the reputational capital. Because if I give a bad deal to Unicredit, Unicredit will never get into the startup. So what happened historically was that we went to the banks and we said, listen, you should do something for startups, first of all. Second, you should give money when we think they're ready, even though you wouldn't give money. Why? Because we've seen the prototype, because we've spoken to the customers, because we feel that the company is ready to actually go on debt. And why should you do it? To create a customer base, because it's a feel-good kind of thing, because Unicredit is helping the startups, because I mentioned Unicredit because we work with them and other banks as well. And third, because we're not creating billions of companies. We're creating 15 to 20 new companies every year. Multiply that by 100,000 euros. Can you set aside that riskier budget? I mean, it's nothing for you. And if we give you a bad deal, the bank said, oh, no problem. What's the collateral? And we said, if you want to do business with us, there's no collateral deals. Full stop. And they said yes. Now, what happened is interesting, because in the new startup law in Italy, 80% of the debt raised by innovative startups is actually covered by the state. Okay, so that makes it even easier, because the bank is only risking 20. They do come and say, okay, what about the collateral for 20%? And we say, if you want to have that, you don't do business with us. And they say, okay, let's go on just the same. So it's basically taking away the information symmetry, but you have to play with your reputation. And the real collateral was the reputation of IPP of never giving a bad deal to a bank, save for one occasion, but I mean, it happens.
Good, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you to the speakers. Thank you for the chair that really help us and support us to keep the time. So we keep the pace. That is to say, we are about one session late, which is not too bad.